Hey everyone, just a quick disclaimer here at the front. My guest on this episode, Erica, had a couple of audio issues, so there's a little bit of distortion on the audio on her end. It gets better throughout the episode, but in the early parts there might be a couple of words or things like that that are a little unclear. Sorry about that. I did everything I could to pull it back, and I found that it's a little bit better to listen to without headphones actually, so if that's an option for you, that might help out a little bit. Anyways, into the episode. Welcome to GameStorm, a podcast where I sit down with a new game designer, artist, or creative every episode as we design a new game from scratch. My goal is to bring the creative process of design to the forefront. Come join us if you're into wacky, small indie games, hearing designers talk about their process, or if you want to follow along with the episode and design your own game to one of our prompts. My name is Chase Krakowski, and I'm here with Erica Bridges this episode. We'll be taking a new prompt today and figuring out what game we can build with it. Erica, you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Erica Bridges. I am a TTRPG designer, academic sometimes, freelance writer. Yeah, based in Chicago, much like Chase.
So today, I'm spinning our prompt right now. Our prompt is going to be, this is going to be a wacky one, a game with a bingo sheet.
Okay.
This is
bingo sheet.
A recently added prompt from a friend of mine.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, what if it had bingo? And I was like, wait, do you mean like... My brain immediately went to, what if you had the whole bingo machine? Yeah. And you were like, your resolution mechanic was bingo? And I was like, that'd be really cool. What if you did have a bingo machine? And then I was like, what if... Brindlewood Bay totally should have done that. Their resolution mechanic, because it's a bunch of old ladies, should have been bingo.
It should. Oh, that's awesome.
But I guess most people don't own bingo machines.
No, that's going to be an immediate, obstacle for us to overcome. Okay, this is very interesting. I don't think I would have come up with this at any point on my own. Yeah. Let's play. Let's play around in the space.
Yeah, so my first big thing is what are you marking off on the bingo sheet?
Yes.
For a teacher? Well, and I guess that begs a lot of questions of like what is the game, like what is the setting for something like this? Although I guess there's it kind of begs a question of like, do we want to design from the mechanical side of it or from the like the world and the setting or side of it?
Yeah.
So, and I'm curious, do you have any like settings that you've been stuck on recently? Or do you have any mechanics or ideas that you've been set on?
So I mean, I have a couple games I'm working on right now. I was actually thinking last night as I was, getting ready to, pop up on this podcast, talking a little bit about like my own approach to how I come up with my games.
Sure.
Because it frequently varies with the actual idea. So like with my first game that I published, Nostos, that was one that kind of emerged out of a hack that I did. I was riffing off of some other designs. But with the game that I'm working on right now, which is called Hit, which I'm planning on publishing probably in like June or July, is a blackjack-based game. And so, like, using that resolution really informed, okay, this is a space western. Like, the feel of it is informed by the mechanics. And so definitely, like, Bingo Hall is one thing that we could do with it. We could definitely say, like, this is what it culturally is associated with the bingo sheet.
Yeah.
And go that way. But we could also discuss... What I would like to discuss is like, okay, what can we do with a bingo sheet? Because going, oh, this is a bingo hall, Brindlewood Bay. I love that idea. Like that's like as like a side thing, like doing a thing for like a supplement for Brindlewood Bay that is bingo related seems like a really fun like idea. But yeah, like I think it's interesting to talk about what this mechanic can do. And like try and by talking about like what the experience of interacting with it is and see what we can find from that. Because, like going to like the blackjack thing, when I was like approaching the mechanics of like, okay, when you're doing blackjack, like what can you do with a deck of cards? You can reveal the top card, you can deal the top card, you can shuffle the cards, you can like interact with the hands that people are dealt, that sort of thing. So like
we were just talking about this in the last episode, but like I'm not sure if you're familiar with the game, but I still can't remember the name, and I should have looked it up, but the game where you like trap demons, the solo RPG where you trap demons in your cards and you like cut them up and stuff. Like that's another game.
I have heard of this.
And I should remember the name. I was just talking about this last episode and couldn't remember the name as well. But that game is also like, those are some of those unique ways that you interact with a mechanic like cards. Just pops into my head as well when you're talking about like what are all the different ways you can interact with something like that. And I think that's a cool way to engage with something like bingo.
Yes. And so like the first question I have is, well, we can talk about like whether or not we want bingo to be the mechanic, like the marquee thing, or if we want to incorporate it as an element within a larger system.
For sure. One of the interesting things that pops into my head right away with bingo is the fact that you could put like potentially prompts, but also like elements of narrative play in these like bingo slots. And Jesse Miller just recently wrote a new blog post talking about a character arc system that he's working on. And one of the things that is important to that character system is these like questions that you have to answer and these like things that you have to like embody or change about yourself in order to like move to different acts. And one of the things that pops into my mind is, you could put, these are elements of like your character that you want to like cross off as advancement almost. And these are like, I got a bingo because I advanced my character in all of these narrative ways. Yeah. And that was something that popped into my head like relatively quickly.
I like that. And one thing that we could do is we have bingo. And so I'm assuming we're going to do bingo is usually like a 25 grid thing, right?
Yeah.
Like five rows of 5. Mm-hmm. And we could do something like an alignment grid where we put a X and Y axis, or even like the fact that like the diagonal sort of thing. Like we could flavor the kinds of things that people do based upon
really interesting.
An X axis and a Y axis. And using that, because bingo is you have to get 5 in a row, either horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, right? Like that's and so that means that kind of going away from like, because obviously we're all familiar with like lawful, neutral, whatever from D&D, but also like to paraphrase like from Mass Effect, Paragon and Renegade.
Yep.
Or light side and dark side if you want to invoke Star Wars. We could have fun zigs and zags. In which case this becomes more of like this becomes the way that you develop your character and not the resolution mechanic.
Yeah. Well, and I could even potentially see a world where it's the only mechanic for a game that is very freeform. Yes. And the game is mostly around like role play with this as like you're basically just saying like, oh, here's this bingo sheet of your prompts. Yeah. Now go forth and role play, and you want to hit these elements in rows that give you. That's super interesting with corners as sort of alignment as well, because by doing a row across, you're gonna by its nature need to hit in different alignments.
Yes.
Which is super fascinating.
Yeah.
So that I feel like creates a really dynamic character. And then you suddenly have to choose like, do I want to, in the narrative at the moment, do I want to create this interesting, unique interaction where I'm going to be doing this thing and this thing, or do I want to do this thing and this thing? And it's bingo, so you're going to be all over the place probably a little bit. So that's super cool. I really like that alignment idea alongside the narrative prompts.
Yeah.
I haven't really thought this far yet, but are you envisioning prompts more along the lines of questions or more along the lines of phrases of like I don't even know what that would look like actually now that I say it out loud. Maybe I need to think about that more before I start talking.
I think that in terms of like, okay, we have to figure out what goes into the grid. Like, because it could absolutely be prompts, which would be especially if this is the only thing that we have going on mechanically, an incredible way to prompt and indicate like the feel of the setting. Like I just got a copy of Avery Adler's Going for Broke.
Oh yeah.
And so like imagine, I'm not saying we should do a sitcom, but like the idea of a bunch of sitcom zany like actions, you know. Okay, actually I'm saying this, but there is kind of an archetypal thing with like Seinfeld. Are you
Sure.
a Seinfeld or a George or an Elaine or a Kramer?
Yeah.
And like having flavoring the alignment in that way is an idea. Where in terms of like the kind of, you know, neurotic whatever, or don't take things seriously or say something crazy is an idea. Another thing you could do is just have like adjectives and have it when you roleplay something like or adverbs. Ooh, I kind of like adverbs. There's the idea of like, what if you could make a game that is based on one part of speech, and so like angrily could be a space.
It's good that I keep having nerds on this podcast because like almost every episode has somehow come down to like words or language in some way, and I just think that's good because it's I love that. But like the idea of having like a central, even I could even see a central adverb or something like that that could coordinate like the sections, even if it's not just a single space.
Yes.
But you could also just be like, here's a single adverb for each space, and then how do you like tie that into whatever like narrative moment?
Yes.
And then you like fill in your narrative moment, and that's how you tie things together across.
Yeah.
That would create like a really free form way to tie. I will say there's some pros and cons to that, because the pro of that is it's very free form, and it's probably like pretty setting agnostic too. I think the con of that is there's way less, you're giving the player way less to work with in terms of like what their prompting is. Now you could have more of that prompting in something else. It doesn't necessarily need to be in the bingo sheet. It could be in like a little bingo book or whatever. It's just something interesting that comes to mind.
You know, the thing that immediately came to mind when we were talking about that just popped in is I was starting to think of like Sir Gawain. I was starting to think of like knighthood in the Arthurian sense, and how being a knight is defined by a certain amount, like what kind of knight you are and what kind of actions you take kind of dictates are dictated by the things that you do. So like if we take like I love Gawain and the Green Knight. It is a wonderful poem. If people out there have not seen the Green Knight movie that came out a couple years ago, oh, it's so good.
I have not. Yeah, I need to see it. I've heard it's very good.
Knights are defined by, you know, they have this noble code and how they have to act, but also like the ways in which they might falter is a way of doing things. I was kind of thinking about like how characters, if we're doing this alignment grid, we can have a mirror thing where getting bingo on a diagonal represents half in one thing and half in the other as an idea, which could lead to, if we design it in a particular way, like really nuanced like character work.
Sure, yeah.
A thing that we're gonna have to talk about is the fact that by us making the bingo sheet, we are also restricting the things that people can do to win.
Yeah. Well, and that's an interesting point, because there's something to be said about like what is or does winning mean in this context. And like what is filling out the row on the
Right,
bingo sheet,
yeah.
right? Like, because in bingo, right, you're like, oh, bingo, I win. But in
Yeah.
like this context, it's more like, oh, I've completed my narrative
Yeah.
or something like that.
Yeah.
I really like your comment about a night setting. Like, I feel like a sort of classical like Knights of the Round Table vibe actually fits really well with the thing we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Because it, like you're saying, it does have that very complex sort of noble code and the ways they can like fail or have that like downfall
Yeah.
or whatever. So you can have that sort of complex story of the two beats in the way that they are like either noble or strong, and you can have those like two beats in the ways that they are bad or weak,
Yeah.
which is kind of a fun dichotomy of noble, strong, weak, bad, or bad is a weak word there, but you get the
But no,
general
like
dichotomy.
I feel like I'm thinking of, you could even have it as, so I'm thinking of one diagonal of this like success failure
Mm-hmm.
for the innermost circle, having it being succeed at a small task, fail at a small task, succeed at a great task, fail at a great task.
Oh,
and
so
having
you're saying have the stuff that's closest to the center would be like smaller, and the stuff that's further away is bigger. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
That creates a really interesting thing where you're incentivized to make your narrative bigger as you move out and then make it smaller. So I have an interesting question. I guess I have two questions. First, do you think this game needs a GM? And that is a question that we can keep coming back to. You don't have to answer it right now necessarily, but it's something to keep in mind, because this is a question that all of these come to relatively quickly as we're working on these. And I think this is a game that could have a GM, but doesn't need one so far. And I think it's going to depend on the other structure that we build into it, probably.
I totally agree. And I can think of a few ways in which we're doing this. So, like, if we're doing knighthood stuff, and we want the players who all have bingo sheets to be knights, and I like quests. I want us to, like, hew to that. Like, we could totally do this in, like, a way that it's a big jousting tournament or something like that, of knight v knight.
Quests is way cooler.
I agree. And so with that, either you want a DM to represent the opposition or frame situations, or you have something else where you might have other players role play different characters or answer different prompts.
This is something that we were talking about in one of the previous episodes that I did, where we were discussing the idea that with a GM, you have this other who has more of an incentive, depending on how you frame it, who can have more of an incentive to be that like that thing you need to surmount. Whereas without a GM, it sometimes can create a tension, I think, where like players are creating the thing that they need to overcome. And I sometimes like in games, even where it is fully narrative, to have a GM where you can like have the person to put the struggle that the people need to surmount. I think there's an interesting thing here where, like what you were saying, where you have other players become the bad people or the quest or whatever, where you can create that sort of, and this is also how like the Baker's Firebrands game works.
Yes, which I adore that game.
Incredibly fascinating. Game. And like by splitting up the players into the audience and the actually at odds players can be very fascinating. And I think that might be an interesting way to do it here, because you could have knights fight. You could have two knights become bandits for a scene or whatever.
I also, as you were talking about a GM, I had an idea, and I don't know if we're going to stick with this, because I really like what we're going with so far, but this idea makes me really excited and gives kind of a burst to this game that I think is interesting. What if the GM has a secret bingo sheet that is based upon what players do?
Oh, that's really cool.
And, like, they're trying to prompt players to do certain things, based upon their bingo sheet.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah. I really like that. I think that's really interesting.
That makes me think, have you ever watched Game Changer?
I was thinking of like, okay, yeah, the Game Changer episode that is bingo based, and I'm like, okay, there's kind of there's something here. There's something really exciting, because like, imagine being a player and like you do something and the GM doesn't say anything. They just, mark off something on a sheet. You're like, what did I do? What part of my actions triggered that?
That's especially cool if the players don't know that exists. Like if they haven't read the game yet.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you bottle that. And I think the way that you would bottle that every time, that feeling every time, is if the GM's sheet is like somewhat unique every time.
Yes.
Which is that means that like the GM would either have to write part of it or maybe the whole thing. Maybe that's something that the GM's sheet should just be prompts for how to write it.
Yeah.
And that's super interesting. I think that's really cool.
Like, I don't know if I really like our knighthood thing, but like that GM idea is so good that could be its own thing, like part of outside of this.
Well, and but I think that works really well as like a GM thing in the context of like knights, because then you can frame it in a bunch of different ways. Like the GM is the lingering evil in the world who like the knights are like facing against. You could also make it into like a spy game, and the GM is like the evil mastermind working against you and stuff like that. Like I think there's a bunch of different framings that would work really well against that system. So, and
I think it's also a really good way for you to direct stories that are so like generic, and I mean that in the sense of genre. So much of Arthurian knights' tales are about problems of personal. Well, I see so many. My friend who's like a really big Thomas Mallory head is probably tearing out her hair, because I'm going mostly off of Gawain here. But like, Gawain of the Green Knight is about. Because how familiar are you with Gawain? Maybe we should just talk about Gawain of the Green Knight a little bit.
I would go for it. I'm not super familiar, but I know a bit, and I'm sure people in our audience won't be familiar. So
okay, cool. So I'll kind of briefly summarize the events of Gawain of the Green Knight. So Gawain of the Green Knight is a story. It's a wonderful epic poem written in Middle English that is about the beheading game, which is that one Christmas, as the Knights of the Round Table are gathered celebrating, a strange green knight appears and challenges whatever knight will rise to his challenge to the beheading game, which is basically cut off my head, and then a year from now, I cut off yours. And so Gawain, being young and brash, was like, I'll do this game because he's going to be dead. I'm going to cut off his head, and then it'll be fine. And so he cuts off his head, and then the Green Knight picks up his head and is like, great, next Christmas, see you at my place so I can cut off yours. And so now suddenly there's the sense of honor of like, you agreed that you would receive the same blow that you gave. And so then Gawain, a year hence, goes off on an adventure. He wanders around, and eventually he gets to the castle Bertilac, which I believe, if I remember correctly, the lord of that castle is secretly the Green Knight, but it's not clear. The main thing that's going on there, though, is that Gawain is tempted, both kind of like sexually and morally, by the lady of the manor.
Okay.
There's this idea of like whether or not he might sleep with her, which obviously both is adultery and sex outside of wedlock, both big no-nos in the very Christian ethos of Arthurian legend, but also the Lady Bertlack offers Gawain this thing of a girdle, a green girdle, kind of like a belt. It's a special belt that basically, if he wears it, he won't die, is the idea. And so the question is whether or not he will choose to participate in this game in bad faith, whether or not there will be the moral failing of that. And so like the central ideas are, can you maintain your honor? Can you be true to your word? Those sorts of things.
This has made me think that another, I don't 100% know how that gets framed in a game like this, but moral versus immoral is maybe another axis that we could think about, because that's very clearly one of the things that gets played with a lot in a lot of those stories.
Yes.
Interesting. Something like this could create a lot of space for stories like that to get created, I think, where then you create moments where the GM has on their sheet that they want a certain moment to happen, and then they're prompting like scenarios or like setting scenes that lead up to potentially that conflict between that moral and immoral.
Yeah.
And even in that story, you have Gawain having like a bit of both, right? Mm-hmm. And that creates like a more rounded character. So I think that's really interesting.
Like a prompt of a character's tempted with an easy way out, something like that, or if we come up with any prompt ideas, I'll just throw them into this little sheet that I drew up here, and if we have more than what we have space for, then I'll keep adding. And I love that. This is one of the things that I've found really helpful as I've been doing this, is to start to build like the structure of what the game will eventually be. So I've started to build like the structure of like phases. Right.
Now, we might not have that many phases of play in a game like this. It might mostly just be like creating your character and then like setting a scene, playing a scene, setting a scene, playing a scene kind of thing. But I just find it helpful to kind of talk through, what do we think character creation looks like in a game like this?
Yeah.
Something that I think is really interesting is the idea of having these bingo sections and then having some of them open for characters to fill out as they build their character.
Yes. I had the exact same thought as you were talking, and I'm like, yes. No, we're doing that.
Free space, when I wrote that, I was like, free space clearly should just be open for you to do something and fill in. Like that should be like your easy, like, I did something narratively fulfilling, I'm going to fill it in now, or whatever.
Yeah.
But I think it makes sense to, as you're making your character, be like, here are narrative beats that I want to hit with this character, and here are the categories that they fit into. I'm going to like write a little prompt.
Yeah. Well, I think also this could be a really fun way of, even just character creation could be in certain cases, like, what iconography is associated with your knight? Like,
ooh, yeah, that's a great.
What's on your shield? Because like, so this is you said you like having nerds. Let me introduce you to a literary device. There's a thing called an ekphrasis, spelled ECPHRASIS. It's a Greek word. An ekphrasis is a prolonged description of a material object in poetry. So like in Gawain the Green Knight, Gawain's shield, which like has all of this cool Christian iconography. I think it has the seven graces on it or something like that. Gets a long description. The shield of Achilles that's in the Iliad. And so like just like a really fun way of like, okay, you're a knight. What is on your shield is a really cool way of doing character creation and like those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Please write a short poem about what's on your shield.
But, like, what is...
Only kind of joking.
Yeah. Like, what is a thing that your knight is associated with? Like, Lancelot is Lancelot of the Lake. Like...
Yeah.
Well,
and... Yeah, I guess beyond what visual elements are they associated with. It's really just what in general, what is your knight associated with? And then I really like what is on your shield. Like, I think that's a cool prompt question.
Yeah.
And then filling in the empty prompts on your bingo sheet. Keep in mind, what are your goals as a knight?
We could have 2 bingo sheets. We could have more than one. We could have one for character creation and one for play.
We could also, and maybe this is sacrilegious of me to suggest, but we could also make our bingo sheet bigger.
I was thinking that we were getting really restricted by the 5x5.
Like, I don't know if does that remove the fact that it's a bingo sheet? I don't know. Do people play big bingo?
I bet you they do.
I'm sure they do.
I bet if I Google right now big bingo, I'm gonna...
Well, I just see a bunch of big spin bingo clubs.
Yeah, no, that's kind of what I see.
I don't know what that means.
I'm gonna try oversize.
Yeah, that's probably
no. Okay, yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing big... Wow, there's a lot of spaces on this one. So, I mean, there's options.
How many spaces are too many spaces?
Okay, like, I feel like we don't want to go too crazy.
Yeah.
Because, like, a 6x6... I think a 6x6 is a good amount. The only negative...
Not having a central...
It's so important.
I think it has to be 5x5 or 7x7.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think 7x7 is crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, it might be a little crazy, but it's not like the craziest thing in the world.
Yeah.
It does look quite big when I built this table here. But I think that's like functional, especially if you're going to do like a whole sheet of paper. It gives you a lot more space or whatever, and you could do like a whole 8.5 by 11 with a bunch of space for each box or whatever. But that would give space for like the free space in the center. It would also give more space for each of the corners, and you could also potentially do something with the straight lines out of the free space. Like maybe those are the ones you fill out, and the corners are the ones that are already filled in with prompts.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right.
The only reason I'm thinking that is because the ones that are straight lines out are kind of between the corners, and so you'd have to like decide like which corner takes precedent in which area, or just do like a corner overlap thing and have it just keep going around. So, and we could do all of those things, but
I love the amount of design space that we have with just a bingo sheet.
Yeah, it's kind of wild, actually.
Yeah, I never would have thought, like, you said that, and I'm like, oh, bingo, okay, like, it's just a bunch of squares, and, like, there's so much that we're able to do with this.
The thing that's kind of crazy too is like this could be advancement, and we could tack a resolution mechanic on top of this and make like a much more like PBTA Blades style game if we wanted. Not that I want to do that, but I'm just saying like
it's an idea.
It's a thing that I thought of early on, and I was like, I don't think I want to go that direction. But just thinking about it is like there is a lot more room additionally where this could just be scaffolding for advancement in a way that like helps people like visually recognize it and like visually keep track of it. I think it's more fun to do it this way though. So
I agree with both of these sentiments. I think this is a really fun thing that people should play around with as an advancement thing, particularly like if in each of the corners you like establish a thing that somebody's working towards, like to borrow a term from old D&D, but like a prestige class.
Sure.
But no, I think I like where we're going with this.
So after you create your character, we have choose a knight, what is associated with your knight, what is on your shield, choose a name, fill in empty prompts on the bingo sheet, keep in mind what are your goals as a knight, and then what is the next phase of play in your mind? My thought is that it might just go straight into scenes, but it almost feels like there needs to be some little bit of scaffolding between that, and I'm not sure what that is.
We have to have an inciting incident.
Oh, sure, yeah, that makes sense.
A la like the beheading game in Gwaine, or the Grail, the search for the Grail.
Sure.
We have a scene with all of the knights at the round table, and the or the equivalent, and like something happens that drives them to go off on quests, that they all need to prove themselves. And I think that could be a fun, like, having that be an actual discrete, like, game phase where you establish the stakes, you establish the dynamics between knights, could be a fun idea.
That's a great way to do introduction as well. I think that was that's a big reason I was feeling there needed to be something in between, is because going straight into scenes, it's like that makes introing knights feel kind of artificial, I think, whereas this creates something that is much more like in the world.
I mean, just like being like, okay, we're at the feast. Where are you seated? What are you doing at the feast? How close are you to the king? Like, are you the king's nephew? And so, like, he kind of has your eye. Or are you a new knight, just been knighted, that's kind of yet to prove yourself? Like, these could be really fun ways to establish your character to begin with.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think the biggest thing this needs probably is some light GM prompts.
Yes.
Either just, I think this could go two ways, where it could be light GM prompts around like what are good inciting incidents, and then we just leave the rest up to them. Or it could be light GM prompts about like how to do that scene. But I honestly think it's more interesting if it's just light GM prompts around like good inciting incidents. Like you mentioned, Search for the Holy Grail is a good one.
Yeah. The beheading game is just another one. Like, not necessarily literally that, but like a dude walks in and makes a challenge. How do you guys respond?
Any sort of evil / Black Knight tale, I think, could make for a good fit here.
Yeah. Something
with magic, spooky, ooh.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of Morgan Le Fay stuff. A member of the Fey court, if we want to go a bit more, the fairy queen, like, appears. I say this I don't really know a lot about John Dryden, so I can't really, I'm like, oh god, I am hoping that I'm getting that right, that John Dryden wrote The Fairy Queen. I probably made one English person really mad right now.
I'm like second and third hand knowledgeable on a lot of that stuff, not first hand knowledable. So a lot of my stuff is like, oh yeah, I know like vaguely about stuff that is related to old folk tales, but I'm not. I'm familiar with the first-hand sources. So watched Merlin once. Anyway, I think that's a good little list of prompt ideas, though.
And honestly, I think this is a little bigger than what we've got in mind. But like, if we were making a full game, like if we were like publishing something, having bingo sheets that are associated with each prompt, like unique ones.
Oh, bingo sheets associated. Yeah. That's a good idea. Because then you could have some stuff. You could do the same thing where you have some stuff filled out and some stuff not.
Yes.
It would kind of be cool if, and we could talk about this a little more once we have our like scaffolding built out, because we can talk about trying to fill out the rough idea of a player bingo sheet.
Yeah.
I think it might be cool. And maybe the GM bingo sheet only needs to be a 5x5. I'm not sure. But it might be cool to try and get like one of these scenarios that we think is like interesting and start to fill out some rough ideas for prompts on that as well, because then we could like put together something that is like pretty playable from this and easy to pick up.
I have an idea for what happens when the GM gets bingo. It tells them how this like quest or whatever ends, because like somebody finds the Grail eventually, or Gawain comes home. Like all of these things where a bunch of knights go out and do stuff ends at a certain point. You're hunting the great animal.
And you can use the corners of the GM bingo sheet to determine, like, you went into these two sections, so it ends this way. You went into these two sections.
Yeah.
You could have a little matrix that's like, oh, here's how your quest, like, roughly, here's a prompt for how your quest ends.
Yeah.
That's a cool idea. I really like that. And then you can have a kind of, like, dynamic prompt for quest end.
Yes. Also, I want to clarify, I just want to make sure that, like, what I'm imagining with quests is, like, players' individual scenes with like one player as a focus.
Yeah.
Like, I think that this is a smaller game in terms of how many players you have.
Maybe like 1 to 3.
I think so. I don't think you have like 5 or 6. I think it's the sort of thing where you just kind of get into a natural rhythm of, okay, let's have one scene for night A's quest and like see how things develop with them. And then let's see how it goes on with night B. And all the while the GM is like checking things off that, and like it could be even something as like, do they find the Grail? Yes or no? Do they find it and bring it back? Like that, like those sorts of things.
Sure.
I also think, I don't know if we should make this literally Arthuriana. We definitely could. And besides like the Great Pendragon campaign, I don't think there's much actual Arthur stuff in the space.
I think a lot of this too could kind of be very easily shifted theme-wise. Yeah. So like if we finish writing like the structure of this and we're like, let's shift the theme a little bit, then I think we can do that pretty easily.
Yeah.
So when it goes to scenes, because I totally agree with you, I think this is mostly like you are Sir Knight Frank, where do you go? And then they're like, I'm gonna go search for the Grail here or whatever.
Yeah.
And I am curious, is that in your mind, is that all just freeform roleplay?
I'm not sure, because I think we could talk a little bit about like, so in Gawain and the Green Knight, there is a brief section describing the adventures that he gets into along the way to the Castle Bertilac.
Sure.
And like, or I'm thinking of my favorite of the stories from Mallory's Le Mort d'Arthur, which is about Sir Gareth, where Sir Gareth, as a young knight, basically goes through a bunch of different chromatic knights. Like, he fights a red knight, and then he fights a blue knight, and then he fights a green knight. Yeah, that story's really great. I really recommend, if anybody wants to just read one thing from Le Mort d'Arthur, like the tale of Sir Gareth is really fun. But like, yeah, I feel like there are these little episodes along the journey that each of these characters are getting, and the bingo prompts from both the player and the GM kind of ask them to determine the thematic and moral resonances of their characters' stories.
That's a great way of saying that. One of the things that comes to my mind here is, does there need to be any light resolution along that? Like, if there are small side episodes along the way to like completing the quest or whatever, in order to like, and this is where I say, is it more just freeform role play, or is this something where our resolution system is sort of Lasers and Feelings-esque, where it's like 1d6 high rolls do this, or this type of roll does this, you want to roll above your lasers or feelings amount or whatever?
I am going to say I think this should be diceless. Sure. And I think that the resolution should be freeform.
That's kind of what I was thinking, and that's where I lean kind of towards the freeform roleplay element. I guess my biggest question with that is, what's the best way for us to frame that in a way that helps people build good stories? And maybe we don't actually need to do much of that, because the bingo sheet does that for us.
Yeah, I think so.
That might be something we find in playtesting, though. Like that honestly might be a hard question to answer here.
I'm thinking of so much of these stories, of these kinds of epics and romances, are formulaic and repetitive, and the kind of the different flavors that you put upon each individual tale are a big influence on how the story goes. But like, I can't imagine a skald telling the story of Beowulf, or like Snorri Sturluson telling the story of the Eddas, and being like, and did Odin in fact find wisdom on the tree, and then rolling a die, like I can't imagine that. Like
Yeah.
it wouldn't be interesting because
Well,
like
and
yeah.
the flip side too is like I guess we don't have to worry so much about people being unwilling to choose dramatic negative outcomes because we'll have
Yeah.
those framed as like
Yeah.
interesting narrative prompts. So
Yeah.
that's not as much of a concern. And I think that is one of the big benefits of the bingo sheet in this
Correct.
context. Because that's always my concern with more freeform roleplay games is you end up with a space where there isn't as much incentive for like that interesting narrative turn of like, oh, I'm actually going to lose here because it's more narratively interesting or whatever.
I totally agree. And I feel like also having a resolution system that is based on, oh, you succeed or you fail.
Yeah.
People don't like failing.
Yeah.
That's just a general human psychological thing. And so but like stories are predicated on failure.
100%.
Yeah. Characters need to fail for their successes to matter. And giving that the thing where the player decides whether they succeed or fail, giving them that ability turns a possible loss into something that feels like a win because you did it on your terms.
This also has a cool element related to that where like it's actually almost the inverse of what you were just saying where they have to choose when they're going to win on certain prompts because they have to check them off when they do them. Which is sort of similar to that game of yours that we play tested with the locking stuff in.
Yeah.
And so I think that's really interesting because I love the idea of someone being like, well, I really want to succeed later, so I'm going to choose to fail now, which is dramatic and interesting. And I think that's good. So
Totally agree.
Okay, so freeform roleplay with one player in focus primarily. I wrote down here other players jump in as NPCs and help answer paint the scene questions because I think that creates a fun like I'm the bandit, I'm gonna stab you or whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
And each player has their little episodes. I liked what you were saying about the bingo prompts helping determine like the thematic and moral resonance. And having that the noble versus ignoble, strong versus weak, moral versus immoral kind of stuff. And then you can create that sort of tension by choosing whichever prompt you want. In terms of like as you're sitting down to play this, are you envisioning that like if I'm a knight and you're the GM, if I'm sitting down, I would be like, I wanna focus on this prompt next? Or is it more of you would set a scene, a little like side episode, and then I would be like, I'm gonna solve this by doing this prompt?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Because I think both are possible, and I think they create different play experiences.
Yes. I, generally speaking, am in favor of, we don't do enough of letting players define scenes as an industry, as a community, and I like that a lot. The only issue there is one of gameplay, because we expect GMs to define scenes. I can talk about my personal experience here. I've played a lot of the games of Jenna Moran, so like Chupa's Marvelous Wish Granting Engine and Glitch.
Yeah.
Going to be starting a Nobilis campaign once Nobilis 4 comes out. I'm super excited for that. And the way at least my group plays them often has, okay, cool, we're going to switch the spotlight on your character, and my GM will ask me, what's the next scene? What happens next? And sometimes, oh yeah, I know exactly what I'm doing, and like we jump to something. And other times, man, I don't know. Like, and it can be tough. And I know that like for players, it is very easy if you, a la like a police interrogation room, like shine the lamp in their face and say, what are you doing next? They could freeze up.
Well, here's the interesting thing here is we sort of have a range of options with this where we can be like, the player determines the scene and frames it, or we could just say the player just picks a prompt and says, GM, we're doing this prompt, and then the GM frames the scene off of that. So like we could do kind of a mixed thing here where the GM goes, okay, you're up. Which prompt do you want to use to frame the scene? And so I think based on what you're saying, and I think that's those are fantastic interactions when the GM does offload some of that to the players, because it does, especially for players who don't GM, it helps to get them warmed up to the idea that GMing isn't as daunting as often people expect it to be. And I love the idea of like players having that agency of like, I want to do this really dramatic prompt where I fail. And then the GM being like, okay, give me like a minute so I can like come up with a little scene.
Yeah.
And then they go. I think that's really fascinating. I would be curious to see how that plays. And that might be one of those things that like adjusts a bit as playtesting happens, right? Like, but I think that's an interesting framework to start from.
Totally.
So sort of like a player picks a prompt, GM frames the scene based on the prompt, and then the goal is through play that prompt is met. So like if the prompt is like what you were saying earlier, tempted with an easy way out. And the interesting thing about that prompt too is tempted with an easy way out doesn't determine whether or not you take it.
Yes.
Which I like. I think that's a really good way to take those kinds of prompts because it leaves so much room.
Yeah. And also I feel like we should be very conscientious with how we phrase these prompts.
Yeah.
Because like tempted with an easy way out, that could be a lot of things. You know, I'm immediately thinking about like, what are the other players gonna do? And you know, like another player would be like, I want to be a weird witch you run into who's like, I can make you a potion that will find you the grail.
Yeah.
And you know, the question is, okay, do you take it? Blah blah blah. I do really like the players jumping in and role-playing other characters too, like just bit parts that you run into. And maybe as part of the game we can have a list of like, here are some stock characters that you can include, like
sort of
just
archetypes.
Like, exactly, like what are the kinds of, like just looking at Arthurian tales, like what are the kinds of weirdos you run into on a quest.
And I mean,
like
you already said witches / wizards.
Yep.
Bandits, I feel like, are maybe that's the wrong word, but like some sort of scoundrel.
Yeah.
And like those are two that come to mind right away.
I mean, knights, rival knights, not necessarily other players, but other members of your court or knights from another land, those sorts of things.
Ooh, I like the members of your court, because that leaves it really open-ended to be like, oh, is this just like some noble who's an asshole and doesn't like you or whatever?
Yeah.
Nobles from another land.
Traveling players, by which I mean actors. I'm thinking very Seventh Seal here, just like, or Hamlet with the player king. I just always love including an acting troupe. I think that it's a marvelous thing to include.
That's a killer list of archetypes right there. Witches / wizards, bandits / scoundrels, rival knights, members of your court, nobles from another land, fae, traveling players. I think that's a killer list.
Yeah.
So I like that as a starting place. So that gives us a really good set of like, how do scenes happen? Each player has little episodes. Player picks a prompt. GM frames the scene, and then freeform role play with one player in focus. Other players jump in as NPCs and help answer paint the scene questions.
Yep.
And then, how does the quest end?
Yeah.
All I wrote so far is GM gets bingo. So
I feel like because with the nature of bingo, you have to get 5, which means you have to hit 2 corners. Or unless you're vertical or horizontal. Yes. Yeah, unless you're vertical or horizontal. What that means is we have 8. We have 8 things, of which you always need 2. No, we don't, because you could also get. I keep on thinking of it like an axis, and no, you can get like all of the first column too.
Yeah. This is why I like your idea that you mentioned of having all of the outside edge stuff be really big. When you were talking about this earlier, because having it like that makes it so that you always need to do 2 really big things as a player. And we can revisit what that means on a 7 size bingo board. But if the GM's only a 5, you could have like a really interesting thing where like everything on the outside edge is like the big stuff related to the quest.
I actually think that we don't want to go 7.
even
I
for
think
the player.
I think players should be because think about it. Like if you're not,
Oh yeah, that is a lot of scenes.
that is a lot of scenes.
Yeah.
Like I feel like four, like four at a minimum is a really nice amount.
Yeah, I
For
hadn't really
like,
thought about
yeah,
how like big that gets in play.
yeah.
Well, just play a campaign.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely thinking of this as just like a la like Firebrands. Just like you sit
Yes.
down and we're gonna have a night, like a big tale. And what's the story? Okay, cool. The king has challenged you all to catch the stag that cannot be caught and bring it
Yeah.
back to court.
Yeah.
And
No,
that
I
is
totally agree.
yeah.
That's a really good point. I hadn't considered how the like time of that would potentially break down.
Yeah.
Because 7 is
That's
because
a
if you're
lot.
gonna go through single scenes with each player, that means you're gonna need a lot in order to cross
Yes.
that all
No,
off.
I think
So,
we stick to the 5x5.
you could even probably go down to a 3x3.
That's
It's real, yeah. Well,
yeah.
so here's an interesting point.
Mm-hmm.
I'm actually thinking about how kind of cool it is to have this as like a thing that is not a one shot, because
Mm-hmm.
then you can come back with growth that
Yeah.
you can see as you've marked
Yeah.
off the bits.
Yeah.
And like, I'm not saying we stay at 7, but even as 5, because 5, getting through 5 scenes for a
That's
single
true.
character is a lot. Plus, if all the characters are going to be rotating scenes, you're probably not going to get all the way through the quest.
Is getting bingo as a player like how you retire a night?
Yeah, maybe. Because they
Like,
finished their story.
and so like they die or they get maimed or they never come back or they return.
I really like that because
Mhm.
then the GM sheet can be 5x5 and the player sheet can be 5x5. And the player sheet, I wonder if that means that the player prompts should be fully. So we were kind of talking in the sense that the player picks a prompt, the GM frames the scene,
Yeah.
and then it plays out and the prompt gets finished.
Mhm.
I wonder if there should be some ambiguity in whether the prompt gets
Mhm.
finished. Like maybe
Mhm.
the prompt is a little bit of a challenge. Instead of tempted with an easy way out, it's take an easy way out. And
Mhm.
this might not be what we want to go with, but it does create an interesting moment where now the GM and the other players tempt you and you have to decide, does your character take this? And if you don't, you don't mark the prompt off.
Right. I like that a lot. I like this.
And then it's the GM only needs to go through maybe 5 to 7 rounds before the quest ends, and you could take your character on multiple quests.
Because I think also this helps address a fundamental gameplay problem where if you are getting prompts off of your bingo sheet, I'm just like, okay, I'm trying to get bingo. I'm only going to pick things on this diagonal.
Yeah.
Like having it be I think we got away from the idea of the bingo sheet where a thing happens and you mark it.
Yeah.
I like the specific things your character goes through check because I feel like I want a character's bingo sheet to be covered.
Yeah,
Like,
you want it to be pockmarked all over.
Yes.
And I love the idea of you being like, I want the prompt to take the easy way out for this scene. They set up the scene and you're like, oh, I can't do that. That's too, I can't do that. That's too much. Like that doesn't, my Sir Frank, as the name I used earlier, would never do that. And then you're like, you back away from it or whatever.
Yeah.
So and that almost feels like a GM advice thing of like, make sure you set scenes that challenge the the ideals of your knights.
Yes.
Maybe that should even be a question, is like, what are your knight's ideals?
I think so, yeah. Also, like, going back to the knight thing, what is your knight's fatal flaw?
Oh, that's also a good question.
Because, like, Lancelot's fatal flaw is that he loves Queen Guinevere. Gawain's fatal flaw is that he's kind of impulsive and frat boyish. Like, you know, like what is the thing that tempts your knight? How do you fail?
Ah, that's so good. Yeah. And then it really just becomes player has little episodes, pick a prompt, GM frames the scene based on the prompt. Be sure to challenge the knight's ideals and flaws.
Yeah.
And that gets much more at what we're talking about.
And man, I do really like the idea now of the campaign. Of the like each session is a different GM bingo sheet as we chart a different quest that the court gets challenged to. And
then maybe it is 7, because then maybe you have this like long form.
Oh my god, dude! No, we have a camp. We have how long of a campaign do you want your game to be? And that's how big the bingo sheet is.
Yeah. That means we have to make a 7 and a 5.
Hey,
maybe we stick to the 5x5s so that we're not going crazy.
That's 49 squares, man.
Yeah, your point. Okay, we'll start with 5x5, but even on the 5x5, I think it makes more sense to frame it that way and say like you'll probably want to play 2 or 3 sessions of this.
Yeah.
So GM has a 5x5 as well.
Yep.
They have their secret sheet with prompts for the players or for things they want the players to do, prompts related to the quest.
Yeah, for not so much I'm thinking of like things that happen more.
Yeah, I guess it's not really prompts.
Not prompts, yeah, because like I think with something like this where
moments
I think is good, where like because like the quest is gonna end, you know, if there's only one stag no one can catch, you either catch it or you don't, and one person is gonna catch it at most. And so like I feel like as things are going on, you're like getting check marks. It's almost like how in like a video game RPG, or maybe more like a visual novel, like, I got to this point and I ticked the right flags based upon my decisions, and so this is what happens. So the GM gets to look and be like, oh yeah, no, like that makes sense.
It's such a clean idea for helping to like frame how that ends. I really like it. I like the idea of having something around the edges, like maybe for the fill out portion, we only give them a sheet that has the outside border filled. And it's like the bigger elements of the quest. So like each of the corners would have the unique elements of like some positive element, some negative. I don't really know how we would frame it in the GM side, but different elements in the 4 corners or whatever of completing the Grail quest.
Yeah.
And then the GM would fill in all the middle stuff. Or you could even flip that, actually. The middle stuff could be what we fill out, and then we leave the outside edges open to them.
I feel like this is sort of thing we play around with in playtesting. We see what feels right. Can I also say that for the ultimate product, I feel like illuminated manuscripts is such a good like aesthetic. Like I can already imagine the bingo sheet and having like those kinds of like medieval figures like peeking around. We can have the weird snails that are in medieval manuscripts. They're so good. Like if you ever played Pentiment, great game.
I have not.
Oh, it's gorgeous. Are you familiar with it?
No, I'm looking it up. I am familiar with this, but I haven't played it. I actually think I own it and just never got around to it.
It's a marvelous game. And I can also say, like, incredibly well researched. So, like, I am not a medievalist. I am a classicist, so I do, like, ancient Rome, Greek stuff. But, like, first of all, this game has a bibliography. Like, when it rolls credits, there is a bibliography of all the historical works. And I remember when I was playing this, my jaw dropped because not only was all the Latin correct, which doesn't happen, but 2, like, I got into a theological debate with a Mother Abbess over Thomas Aquinas, like, within, like, the first 30 minutes, and I'm like, this game is amazing. So
Yeah, that's amazing. I believe I wanted to pick it up. It looks like I don't own it, so I'll have to grab it. It looks really cool.
Highly
I remember when it came out, seeing it and being like, oh, that's cool as hell.
Yeah.
I love that idea, though, of being like, oh, there's like really, really fancy of that era script on everything. That sounds very cool.
And all of the different, figures and things like that. I think that is just like such a cool aesthetic that you don't see in RPGs that much, which is very funny because of how much medieval fantasy really like dominates this space. And it was like, no, like we just have little guys running around. Perspective, never heard of her. Like,
yeah, seriously. So when the quest ends on the GM sheet, I really liked your idea of having the quest end be determined by the bingo somehow. So if we have 4 quadrants on our bingo sheet, is this something where you're thinking that it would be sort of, we have each quadrant has its own prompt and then we like string them together, or is it more like we'd have unique prompts based on which quadrants are hit?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think there's a lot of different ways we could take it.
There are. The upside of just doing a unique quadrant or prompt per quadrant and just saying like, oh, it went diagonal in these two, and you take both and then just like use them together, is that we don't need a matrix of like which 2 quadrants did you hit. Which is way more complicated, but also kind of cool. Probably only because I'm a nerd, but
having it be like the Grail was never found, the Grail is found, at being like one axis, and then like, because I'm imagining that being like the top 2 quadrants basically, because like with bingo it makes it difficult to have.
Because you can hit all of
them. Because you can hit all of them.
So really, it's like you can hit all of them in any combo. So it's like if we did the like matrix option, we would have 6 different combinations, because we could have 1 and 2 together, 1 and 3 together, 1 and 4 together, 2 and 3 together, 2 and 4 together, 3 and 4 together.
Okay.
Wait, I'm missing something in here. I think I got them all. So that would be like a handful of different options. But that's only 6. That's actually not that bad.
That's not that bad.
I was thinking it was going to be more before I wrote it out.
And I feel like it would be the sort of thing, man, I don't know if we're going to be able to get to that here.
Yes, I agree.
Like, that feels like such an interesting thing, but like that's the sort of thing where like I would take time and really figure out how I'd want to do that.
The problem too is like we also kind of need to figure out like what do the quadrants mean? Like is quadrant 1 you found the Grail, and is quadrant 2, because then when you combined them you can like figure out what that means. Because if like 1 is found and 4 is you didn't, then 1 and 4 is maybe like you found it but lost it in your return home or something like that, which is interesting. So like if we gave each, and maybe that's actually a good thing that we should do here. Maybe we just give each quadrant its own like
a thing.
Meaning. And then it's a lot easier to go from there to what do they mean together on our own time later, or like when I'm building this out later.
Here is just a general kind of idea for 4 quadrants. The quest is successful, the quest fails, the result is good for the kingdom, the result is bad for the kingdom.
Ooh, that's a good. I was wondering what I was gonna, because I didn't have any thoughts for the other ones. I like that.
Because, it could be a good thing that we didn't catch the stag, or that the Grail never returns, or whatever. Yeah. And then, if they balance out, then, okay, I guess, yes, and it's nuanced. Yeah.
But I think that gives enough framework for the GM to be like, okay, the quest is successful, the quest fails. You can be like, okay, we got the Grail, we lost it on the way back. You can like come up with something.
Yeah.
And if it's like result is good for the kingdom, result is bad for the kingdom, you could like come up with something off of that.
Yeah.
That's like
I like that. I think keeping it vague is a good idea for just the general idea of these quadrants.
Yeah.
Honestly, do for the GM, for this initial version, do we need to have things in the different squares? Can we just ask the GM to mark if they think like what quadrant the scene went?
Oh, and you're just like, oh, okay, like mark off in the good quadrant somewhere if you think it went well.
Yeah.
The only issue that I take with that is it puts a lot of onus on the GM to decide when to end the session. And there's some benefit in having it be a little bit abstract.
Yeah, you're right. And I also like it being kind of arbitrary when the quest ends. I like it being that like the players happened to hit upon the things that trigger
like, kick
this
it on the road. Oh, it's the Grail.
Yeah. You're like, oh, I didn't realize that would be how that quest turned out. Yeah.
I think you could do it the way, like that way as like a early, just like to get it to the table kind of thing. Yeah. I do think it would put a lot more on the GM.
Yeah.
It just because you end up having to be like, I guess it goes in success. And do I want this to be in a straight line or not? Like, I think what we could do is just say, GM writes their own bingo board for now.
Yeah. Like, hey, GM, you come up with a quest. And like, I feel like we could even do like a Bad Libs thing of like, fill in these gaps of like, you know, the blank is found or a map to the blank, you know, something like that could be a good thing. Because, again, I like this being flexible, too. Yeah. I like this being where, when you sit down to play, the GM's maybe, like, you know, taking 10 minutes beforehand. Yeah, what if it's a dragon? Yeah, there's a dragon. And then, like, comes up with some prompts based on that, some things to hit.
That's what I love about the Lasers and Feelings. I don't know if you've looked at Lasers and Feelings, but the little roll table that they have at the end is like it doesn't give you the whole game you're gonna run, but it gives you enough little like prompting to be like, oh, okay, well, I'm gonna do a big evil bad guy in a spaceship trying to take this thing to destroy the universe.
John Harper really likes that sort of thing. I'm thinking more mostly also of Lady Blackbird, which has a similar sort of thing. Where it's very detailed at the beginning of the story and then leaves up to you to find at the table like where things develop.
Yeah. Okay, I think this gives us a pretty good scaffolding where like I feel like I could probably sit down and play this. The big thing that I don't have is player prompts. Do we want to just like think about player prompts granted, let me ask, how are you on time?
I am fine on time.
Okay, cool.
I think I think we should do that. I want to know, I think that we should have the end of the quest take place back at court.
Oh, okay.
I think that idea. Like, and then like there could be a fun prompt of how was your character changed? You know, because that way we can see, oh, Sir So-and-so never returned. What became of him? Those sorts of things.
Yeah.
So I think
I love the idea of having one of the prompts be like, your character dies or something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's almost only good to do that one as it's like the last line in a bingo or whatever, which creates like a really dramatic thing. That's super interesting.
Yeah.
This is completely unrelated, but if you at any point think of any name ideas, let me know.
Oh, like names for characters?
Yeah. No, like working title names for the game.
Oh, okay.
I wrote down Quest in big letters, but that's a horrible name.
Yeah, I'll have to ruminate on that.
Yeah. I'll be thinking about it too. I feel like every time I have done one of these, I've been like thinking about names for a while after, and very infrequently have I been the one that's like, oh, the best idea. So in prompt land, we have take the easy way out. And I like this framing of a thing that you do.
Yes.
So it's almost less of a prompt now. It's almost, I don't even know, a moment again as well.
Yeah. No, I think it's very appropriate. This is where we ended up because like my own game Nostos is very predicated on this, like of character advancement is, hitting certain beats
Mm-hmm.
on a like whatever your character is going through right now. And it's also very inspired by Jenna Moran's the way that she does quests,
Sure.
where you can get extra XP for doing extremely specific stuff. Walk home in the rain or something like that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, like challenge somebody to a duel is, I think, a good a moment for us, or maybe like, or save someone from danger.
I really like challenge someone to a duel rather than challenge someone to a duel. Do we want like engage in a duel? Because
Yes.
I'm trying to word what I'm thinking.
No, I think I see what you're saying.
I'm just thinking about the take the easy way out, where it's like
Yeah.
you can have, if you have it as like challenge someone to a duel, it's much easier to reach that point.
Also, you need to be unspecifically specific with these sorts of things, where you need to capture the emotionality. Engage in a duel is good because it focuses on the what a person does, not the how they get there or the why they do it. Which is how all of these should be written.
What was the other one you said? My brain stopped functioning when I started thinking.
Challenge somebody to a duel, save somebody from certain death.
Somebody. Yeah, I like that one.
Make a vow.
Oh, that's a good one too. I wonder if there's like some addition to the end of that could make it a bit
More
stronger.
specific,
Yeah. But I really like the core idea.
Make a vow of fealty.
Ooh, that's really intense.
Also, spare someone you've bested.
Ooh. That's so interesting in the context of giving that to the GM as a prompt for a scene as well.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's super cool. Take a life that you didn't need to, or something like that.
Yeah, that's good. It's very. I've just started a replay of Knights of the Old Republic 2, and that's very like, oh, you got dark side points.
Yeah.
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 Oh, here's a good one, and this is one that is more based on like historical epic. Loot a body. It is incredibly important, and it happens all the time. Much more in ancient myth. I have to review in Arthuriana if there's stuff like that. But like, you kill somebody and you get their stuff, and like that's a good thing.
Sure.
The spoils of war.
Yeah. I'm trying to think along the lines of like these sort of dichotomies that we've set up of like the strong versus weak, ignoble versus noble, moral versus immoral. What are some interesting moments of weakness?
Break your word.
Ooh.
This one's good because guest friendship is incredibly important in many cultures, and so like violate hospitality.
Oh yeah.
Either by taking something from your host, or you are hosting somebody. Like violate hospitality, I think is really great.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I think also we could have stuff that is more fantastical. I'm thinking of acquire. I feel like horses should be a thing. Like tame a wild beast or something like that.
Yeah, that's. Oh, I like the idea with that one. What are some other like cool fantastical ones? I was thinking in my head something along the lines of come to the aid of someone you hate, but I like that is a really weak framing of that, but I like the idea behind it. Aid an enemy, I guess, might be a better way to say that in a short.
Yeah. Here's a fun one. Become ensorcelled, like become hexed or whatever.
Ensorcelled is so
I just love ensorcelled. It's such a great word.
That's another one where I'm like just thinking about like if a player was like, here's my moment I want to do, as the GM I'd be like, oh, that's so interesting. Like how frame the scene now.
Yeah. Overindulge in terms of like drinking too much. Yeah. That's where I'm mostly thinking drinking too much for like the Arthurian fantasy thing, but something like that. Like,
yeah. I know obviously like there's so much in Arthurian legend about nobility and stuff like that. How much is there in that about like strength, feats of strength, being strong, things like that, if any? I mean, I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but
This is one of those things where I'm like, well, I could talk your ear off about how it is in Greek epic.
yeah.
But it's been a long time since I've read Arthurian legend, and so I it's sort of, I don't believe that huge feats of strength, a la, you know, that are present in like the Iliad, are as important. I mean, I really think we should lean into the Christian morality here, and I mean that not in terms of like the evangelical. So I mean, like, much like I mentioned, like Gawain's shield having. I'm gonna double check real quick. I'm pretty sure that it's the Graces. Yes, Gawain's shield in Sir Gawain and the Green Knight depicts a 5-pointed star or a pentangle, not a pentacle, a pentangle. There's no circle around it.
Yeah.
Symbolizes a multitude of virtues. Each point of the pentangle represents a set of virtues, including the 5 joys of Mary, the 5 wounds of Christ, and Gawain's virtues of generosity, friendship, courtesy, and piety. So, like, stuff like that.
Okay, yeah. Interesting. That makes sense. That's why I was asking, because I was thinking about, like, should there be elements of complete a feat of strength or something like that, but that doesn't make sense in that context. I don't think. Honestly, this is already quite a good list.
I think so too.
Okay, so we could like fill half of our sheet here, which would probably give a pretty good scaffold for a player to fill out the rest.
Yeah,
maybe if we can if we can come up with 2 more, that would give us 15.
Okay, let's come up with 2 more,
and then that gives us like a pretty good number. Then the player fills out 10 or whatever.
How about receive a I want to say this right, like not necessarily like an enchanted item, but like receive an important relic, or not a relic. I don't want to use relic because that's a particular thing, but like word for Excalibur, the sword, or the sword and the stone. They're different things, by the way. And, or
Excalibur's from the lake, sword and the stone is from the stone, right?
Correct. Yes. Or like, I actually learned recently, this is not in Gawain of the Green Knight, but Sir Gawain's sword is said that if you strike a woman who's in childbirth with the flat of the blade, she will instantly give birth. And that's just a random thing that is just like offhand. It's not used. It's not set up. That's just a thing that his sword can do.
Why?
I love it, man. That's so weird.
Is a positive or a negative?
It's just a thing that they just say. It's like, oh yeah, the sword that could do this. Like,
okay.
But yeah.
Receive an otherworldly item?
Yeah, something like that. Just like, I want you to be able to get a weird shield or a suit of armor or a girdle a la Gawain.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a good way to say this, but I'm thinking about like, because you were talking about like all this, like the sort of Christian morality or Christian values of the time. I'm trying to think of a good way to say like, break.
Ooh.
Yeah, go for it.
Sorry. I was going to like make a confession.
Ooh. I was just thinking like something that's like break or go against your values or something like that. Mm-hmm. Oh, we do have ideals and flaws that we wrote out. Like list your ideals and flaws. So we could have something that's like reveal your flaws or something like that.
Ooh, I like that.
And we could also have something that's like go against your ideals. And
the inverses.
Yes.
Overcome your flaws, bolster your ideals, or like embody your ideals.
Yeah, I can't spell embody apparently, but yeah, I like that. That's a super strong list, I feel like.
I agree.
How quickly we came up with it. I think I could throw these into this, and I could play this game.
I think so too. I think that like we have definitely the scaffolding for a very interesting game. I'm like, I kind of want to like maybe we should keep on working on this. You know, like if it were for that, I'm like, man, I need to find somebody who could do medieval manuscripts. Like I am really married to. I think this is really fun, and I really like this.
Yeah, it's awesome. I am a huge fan of what we have here. So I will I'll definitely work on getting this into like a
Mhm.
one page thing for us after this from the notes, and
Yeah.
then we can talk about continuing on it if you're interested. So
Oh,
let's
absolutely.
stay
And
in
I mean, like,
touch.
also, I'm just okay. Cool. I need to go talk to my friend who is obsessed with King Arthur stuff and be like, okay, I need you to tell me what I got wrong.
Yeah,
Like,
what's not right here?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And I'm like, man, I need to reread some Arthur stuff because, like, if
Yeah.
we're gonna publish it, I want to be able to like invoke. That's just the kind of research I love doing.
Yeah,
So
yeah, for
no, but
sure.
I think this is awesome.
No, I'm super happy with it. It has been so rewarding to sit down and talk with
Hmm.
so many incredible designers over the last couple of weeks
Hmm.
and just realize how, first of all, passionate everyone is about stuff, but second of all, how incredible everyone is just in their own ways of like different people have so like in this we created something that is very rooted in some element of history, which is
Hmm.
obviously one of your passions,
Hmm.
and then seeing other designers like tack towards their passions in different ways, which
Yeah.
is so cool to see. So I love it. I love it a lot. Well, this has been fantastic. I can't wait to work on this more.
Yeah.
I also can't wait to playtest this. This has been very cool. Is there anything else that you feel like the game is missing if you were going to try and sit down and play it before we wrap up the episode?
Yeah, it needs a name.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
I feel like we should take like just maybe a minute or two, talk about it a little bit, let something percolate.
Here, I'll put a little name brainstorm
Yeah.
down here. My brain immediately goes to like something quest related.
Hmm. I would agree with you for except for the fact that like Quest is so overused
It
in this,
is.
and it gets like this is we're talking about Quest stuff, but like that's not like we mean a quest, not like the way that quests are like, oh boy, I found 5 wolf pelts.
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder if there's some way that we could like tie maybe a synonym of quest or some similar meaning.
there's how do you pronounce it? Geas, Geos?
Oh, Gaius, yeah.
Yeah.
But I was just thinking like tying that into the like core idea of like personal growth and like the personal like
Mhm.
story of, because the quests are really just the per session vehicle of
Yes.
like the knights going on this like journey of personal growth. I don't know what that is like name wise, but that's just something that pops into my brain as feeling important.
I'm gonna grab my copy of Gwen and the Green Knight real quick and like
Sure,
just
sounds
see
good.
if some. Okay, so like, yeah, I think you're right that like the emphasis on this game is personal growth. We're charting the emotional journeys of these characters. Um,
I'm just gonna, these aren't like name ideas per se, but they're
mhm.
like sort of the like thematic pillars in my mind.
Yeah,
So like personal growth, good versus evil, maybe not even good versus evil, but more like moral, like
yeah.
I, I don't want to say relativism because that feels not quite right,
Well,
but like
yeah.
the
I mean,
moral
how?
versus immoral idea. But
Yeah, like this is a moral universe.
yeah,
This is a universe in which like when you say in the name of the Lord, like that is objectively like God is there, but also, you know, there are witches and stuff, and there's things that you can do that are bad.
because I almost think that there could be something name wise that plays into like the dichotomies that are inherent in a lot of the
Yeah.
stuff there, but I'm not sure
I'm
exactly what that
trying.
would be.
Feel like we might want to go a little poetic here, and I'm thinking part of it could be that because we have court being an important thing, and we have, and I'm thinking there's something percolating in here with the fact that it's like Christmas in Gawain and the Green Knight when the Green Knight appears, and feast days. There's something about like the changing of seasons that I think is
Okay.
interesting.
Kind of like changing of seasons as an allegory for like the changing of self.
Yeah, and like the changing of a kingdom, because like again, you're also charting the ways in which the quests are affecting the kingdom, and like a very important part about Arthuriana is that like the Age of Knights ends, that
Yeah.
Arthur dies, he's killed by his son, and like these things, or I guess he goes to Avalon, but like the point is that Camelot is no longer a thing. And I feel like I want to do something with autumn. There's like in autumn, yeah, it's like I feel like I'm like rambling poetically here. It's not really working.
And it's one of those things where we can always just, I mean, this I think is a pretty good set of core like pillars of stuff that can lead to something like a name. So we can always just cut it with the idea that like we don't know the name yet. And that's what I've done for most of these. And we can come up with that later as well if either of us have a
like
spark of inspiration.
Seasons of Nights. I think Seasons is a fun.
Seasons of Nights with a K or with an N?
With a K. But like I feel like Seasons.
All of these quests take place in the night.
Oh boy. What the sci-fi novel premises is. Yeah. What if Nights in Night? But yeah, I think that's wise. But yeah, we untitled Arthuriana bingo game.
Well, and I think Seasons of Nights is a better working title than Quest. So much like Seasons, Nights change.
Okay. How about this? A season changed, but with an apostrophe instead of an E in changed. I'd have to double check and see if that's how you do it.
And then it has a semicolon, or sorry, a colon, and then after it says a night changed the same way.
Something like that. Yeah. I feel like I like a season changed or something like that. Like there's something, because we're talking about change and like shifts of characters. There's something. There's something.
No, I think that is going in an interesting direction. So I would ruminate on it because I think there's some interesting stuff there. My a night changed is mostly a joke, but I do think that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
It makes me laugh. So I think this gets us pretty close to a name.
Yeah.
And I do think the game leans in that sort of poetic direction with the much more narrative structure. Damn, this one's cool.
I am very proud of what we have written up here.
In an hour and 30 minutes-ish. So awesome. Well, that has been our bingo game. Thank you guys for tuning in. Erica, if you want to let people know where they can find you.
Yeah, so you can find me on social media. I'm really bad at updating, but I've been trying to get better. I'm on Blue Sky. Erica Bridges PhD.bsky.social or whatever, the usual Blue Sky ending thing. And you can find my games on itch, honeycupgames.itch.io. Currently I have the preview edition of my first game, Nostos, a game about sailing home and saying goodbye, is available for purchase. And it's just kind of like no pictures, just bare bones, like here is a full RPG that I'm planning on doing a Kickstarter or other crowdfunder thing for later this year. And I'm also planning on having a zine out, I'm hoping in around July, of my upcoming game that I talked about a little bit here, Hit, which is a space western that you don't roll dice, you play blackjack, that I'm really happy with and excited for.
Awesome. Well, it's been so exciting to have you on. This has been a very cool game to make. Can't wait to finish it, build it out, put it out there, see what people think. I have been Chase Krakowski with Story Games Chicago, and this has been Game Storm. Hope you guys enjoyed the episode. As always, you can find me on Blue Sky at CH Kirk, and you can find all of my stuff under Story Games Chicago on itch, or you can find us on our website. Tune in next time for our next episode with whoever is with us next. I'm not actually sure who's going to be our next guest yet, and we'll make another killer game, hopefully. So excited to see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.